Okay, so emergency decision-making structure. We talked about ad hoc. The next one I want to talk about is roles and responsibilities. So when you do a roles and responsibility system, what you'll generally have is you'll have your boss, you'll have your manager, you'll have your frontline worker, you'll have the tiers that already exist in your company or your organization or whatever. Whatever their normal roles and responsibilities are, you kind of mirror that onto your emergency plan. But a lot of the time, people will have roles and responsibilities, but they won't actually write them down. So what you can do is you can take people's job descriptions, which you've probably generated to do hiring, so HR probably has this, and you can take those and then kind of morph them into emergency documents for what this role or responsibility does. Don't tie it to the person, tie it to the title. Why? In the event that the person who writes the plan doesn't show up that day, because, Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, you want to be able to field promote people as necessary. So if role A does this stuff, hey you, I need you to do this, here's this piece of paper that says role A do this, and then piece of paper can say, okay, step 1, check this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this, and you can have the person who does this role design this. This sort of document is useful for training, it's useful for succession planning, it's useful for cross-role training where you train everyone in the organization how to do other people's stuff, which is another strategy you might adopt for stuff like this. It has a whole bunch of really useful HR and applications, and it also just works for your emergency plan. So you can use a roles and responsibilities method, and you can use the pre-existing structure of the organization and just make it a bit more specific and make it a bit more simplified and direct for an emergency purpose. So once again, lean on those job descriptions and stuff like that, and you can have people kind of make their own. And frankly, if you're looking to work on succession planning because people leave for whatever reason, this is a way to get people more involved in that sort of process. They may be hesitant to. If we're doing it because, look, if the building catches on fire and you don't show up, I need someone to be able to figure out what you do. Right? Some people won't want to be involved in this process because they fear that they're going to write something that writes themselves out of a job where someone can come in and do their job for them. I get it. You should have less pushback here than you would otherwise have because of the necessity of it being an emergency. Good luck. Whether or not this is successful is largely dependent on the culture of your organization. If you want further specific help on this, you need somebody to guide you on a case by case. But in general, that's a thing that can happen. Okay, that's roles and responsibilities in a nutshell. The final one is one that emergency management looks at, firefighting looks at. This is pseudo-military structure, but this sort of system, which I'm going to show you, it's called the Incident Command System, or ICS. So we have ICS, is a structure where you can kind of place people into this, and it just kind of works. You can also do this to plan a wedding. You can do this to do pretty much anything. It's scalable up and down. This is a really, really good system to put in. Downsides for this, this is going to require training. If you want to implement ICS into your organization or something like it into your organization, and you can't just snap your fingers and do it. Generally, you need people to have some familiarity with it, or you spend too much time trying to explain ICS to people and not enough time fixing the actual problem. The way ICS works is you have two basic sections of it. You have an upper decision group and a lower decision group. The upper decision group is led by what's known as the incident commander. Okay, we have the incident commander. This is the person that makes all of the critical decisions. Okay, the incident commander has 3 or 4, depending on what you need, other functions that directly assist it in command. This is going to sound very military-y. That's for a reason. Okay, so yeah, they have 3 or 4 people that assist it in command. They're going to have legal, and legal is going to make sure that all the legal stuff is good. They're going to have liaison. A liaison is going to Work with other organizations that are kind of tightly interlinked with what you're doing. So if you have another partner or a critical client or a government agency or whatever that you do a lot of this stuff with, you would liaise with them. So this is your kind of private internal communication, making sure we're all rowing at the same time in the boat together person or people or whatever. We'll get into that in a second. You're going to have your safety person. And once again, this is all in the command block here. These are the people that are in, like, this is head office. This is the boss. So this stuff is up here for a reason. Safety makes sure that everybody in the structure doesn't die. So, a decision comes up to incident commander. These people are making sure that they're kind of covered there. Safety's got to make sure, okay, we got to make sure we're not dying here. And then we're going to have emergency communication or media, basically. So you've got essentially what is media. So you have the person or people or thing that is going to deal with communicating outside. So they're going to filter through how you're going to message things or communicate outside of your organization. When you have a major incident, often you got to do press releases. You've got to do some sort of comment to the press or not comment to the press, whatever. This is a decision you need to make. Media is going to be relevant. Lower bracket, you have 4 boxes. Okay, you've got 4 boxes. Now, the acronym to remember this is FLOP. Finance, Logistics, Operations, Planning. When you see incident command diagrams, they will usually list them in the order of operations, planning, logistics, and then finance. They will list them in that order virtually every time, but your acronym is FLOP. Just to remember this: finance, logistics, operations, planning, to remember what box you need to make. Each of these boxes does something very specific, and you can custom tailor this to any situation. Ops deals with stuff that's happening right now. They specifically deal with stuff that happens in the current operational period. I'll get to that in a second, but basically this is the right now people. Planning deals with the stuff that's happening later. So they create plans for what ops is doing next. So ops is where all of your stuff happens, where your stuff gets managed. This is the people doing the stuff now. Okay? Planning is, what do we do next? So that ops doesn't have to think about that. Logistics makes sure that everybody gets what they need. Generally, operations is asking logistics for stuff. And then finance makes sure we can pay for it. All organizations fundamentally come down to these 4 components. Who's doing the stuff now? Who's figuring out what we're doing later? Who's making sure we're getting the stuff so we can do what we're doing? How are we paying for it? It's fundamentally every single thing that you do. Now, what this is specifically depends on what you're doing, but these are the major boxes that it comes into. And then leadership that runs all this is essentially these 4 components. Sometimes liaison isn't really needed because it just depends, but legal, safety, and media effectively is the major component of what's guiding or altering the specific leadership decisions that might get made. Okay, so this is this in a kind of basic form. An operational period, this ties into how you make decisions here, is the amount of time in which a cycle of this happens. So for example, if I had an operational period of 2 hours, then ops is only going to care about what happens in this 2-hour block, and planning is going, like, let's say it's noon, it's 12 o'clock, and ops is going to care about what it's doing between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Planning is going to say, okay, what are we going to do between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock? If it's dealing with what's happening at 1 o'clock, ops is going to go, and planning has an idea, ops is going to go, it's 1 o'clock. I'm already operating. I don't care. You're telling me what to do at 2, right? Get out of my way. So ops is able to flexibly just make decisions and do stuff right now, right? Incident command can override and say, hey, you need to do this, but planning is going to kind of get out of ops's way. Before the next cycle comes around at 2 o'clock, planning is going to send something to command. Command is going to go yes or no, what do we need to change? And subject to it being sufficient, ops is going to get that plan. So planning feeds into ops and planning feeds into command potentially. Logistics is going to get ops what it needs, generally speaking, in the next planning cycle. It usually can't get things that fast, really, really quickly, but sometimes if you have a longer operational period, like a day, then it could. Finance is going to make sure that things get paid for, but basically you have your brick in here that works in that period, and then the things that are supporting it through this system. This whole thing can be one person. So this whole tree can actually be one person. The way this normally works is when someone gets to an emergency, the first person on site, I'm speaking from like an emergency responder point of view with this, the first emergency responder on site becomes incident commander, and they do all of these things at the same time. They decide what they're going to prioritize and how they're going to handle this, but this is done internally basically by one person. And then when someone else gets there, depending on if that person's better qualified to take over as this, these tasks will get delegated. So because of that, you don't need to actually care who is what rank in the organization to do this. You can just figure out who's the best person who is here that does safety. Okay, you're on safety. Who's the best person here at planning and is good at, maybe they're not good at, dealing with the panic right now, but they're good at thinking about what to do, in an hour. You're on planning. You can just fill the roles and delegate as needed. There's a lot more on this. There are multiple courses that are hours or days in length. There's a discipline around incident command. This is a whole thing. But if you like this sort of idea, if you like looking at a system like this where you can kind of just figure it out and it's flexible, very, very good system. If you were to apply this to a wedding, incident commander is generally the bride. Finance is whoever's paying for it. Planning is someone on the bridesmaid team or maid of honor generally. It's been a while since I planned a wedding using ICS. I don't do a lot of wedding planning. I do more of a evacuation planning, to be honest. There's a joke in here about how you liaison with the groom or something, but there's a whole thing. Anyways, the point is that you can scale this down to even like a really, really small situation and it still works. Regardless, you need to create some sort of emergency decision-making structure to figure out how you're going to make decisions quickly. One of the great things about this, as opposed to roles and responsibilities or other systems, is the incident commander is the single point of decision-making. If they're taken out for whatever reason, they fall asleep, coma, injured, whatever, someone else can take up that role. But you have one person making decisions. The decisions are quick. So you can make the decision right now. That's the way things are. There is no room for disagreement. We have 10 minutes to figure it out or bad things happen. Do it now. It's very authoritarian. It's very quick. It's a very military style structure. Really, really good if you have to do a task quickly. Not very good if you want people to be happy about decisions over a very long period of time. But if the building's on fire, you kind of want to make decisions quickly. So that's the main focus there. Anyways. This is how to deal with an incident within a continuity context, roughly speaking. Have a conversation about each of these things and figure out what you're going to do. It's all going to get thrown into a plan later. If you haven't taken the emergency contact information now and figured out who those critical people are yet, you're going to run into trouble later into this phase. And if you have only a few specific people that can activate the plan and no one can call them, you can't activate your plan. So you need to talk about this stuff. That's that.